Hey guys, Sean here, and today in this video I wanted to sit down and talk about another tier list featuring another game I've been playing for a long while now. It is indeed Honkai Star Rail. As of 1.3, I do want to talk about the characters within that update as of, and where I think they lie within the tier list and stuff like that at this point. So I've been playing it since launch, and I haven't played the big betas, but yeah, I definitely played it during launch and up to this point. I've been playing it every single day. I'm like ranked almost 69, I believe. I'm getting pretty close to rank 70, which I believe is the highest rank up to this point. So let's just go down in order, I guess, and then we'll rank them as we go. So let's start with Asta, a 4-star unit. She has been highly regarded. Not immediately, I don't think, but she did get more love over time, and I think it's pretty justified. So I'm gonna go ahead and put her in the S tier. Excuse me, I was gonna say 5-star tier amongst the 4 stars anyway. She does provide a lot of support with her attack buff whenever she procs it with her what was it, her skill or whatever, and essentially, it can work really well against fire weakness enemies, and because it adds 2 pips to her thing out of 5. And depending on how many Eidolons you have for her, it definitely fires her up like more and more. So I think like her basic stuff alone is pretty good as is, but definitely she comes to life more and more with Eidolons. She definitely is one of those characters. So if you manage to get E6 at this point, which I think is definitely possible, but you know it is gacha, so you never know. She does really get really good, especially once you unlock one of the Eidolons where her pips or charge or whatever does not go down with each turn, I believe. I think they last longer. I believe one of those Eidolons do help that out, and it really makes her very valuable. And not to mention, not only her skill is really good, her burst is very good as well, which allows for more speed. And speed is king in this game as well as other games such as E7. So speed is a very valuable buff for anyone really. I think she's a pretty good support unit, very solid support unit. It's just that she is pretty squishy along with a number of harmony characters, so there is that as her weakness. And not to mention also her skill is multiple hits, so that's why she can break toughness shields very fast depending on who you're facing. Whether it's like multiple enemies, I think, or it definitely works better against single bosses. But a lot of bosses bring out the mobs, so that does bring it down a little bit. But the fact that she can do that also on top of her basic kit is pretty valuable, again, for a 4-star. So, very good 4-star support unit, and harmony at that. Now, unfortunately, this is gonna go the opposite way. I think Herta here was fun early on. She was bringing some value early on in the game, but as the game went on, she started really to fall off. She pretty much has like no reason other than farming, but there's already characters that farm better than her. Now, I wouldn't say she's like completely broken or anything like that in the worst way possible, but it's like it's one of those like why use her when you can have other units do the job for her. And it's not like she brings anything too special to the table. The only thing is the kuru and kururin attacks, which yes has spawned those memes amongst Star Rail fans. But other than that, I mean, meme wise, she is S tier, but the actual gameplay sort of reasonings doesn't really leave her a whole lot to go on. And she can kill enemies, she can do the farming pretty well, but then again, all other characters can do the same. Especially once you get past that point within Star Rail, her reasoning really starts to fall off. If you want to challenge yourself, I guess, and really make her work, it could be possible. I don't know. I have not tried it, but she's not completely like useless, which is why I want to put her in D. But C, I think, is a pretty appropriate place for me because she is benched. She has no reason for me to use her because of how many units I have that already do her job, right? And I'm not even talking about the 5 stars, of course. There are plenty of 4 stars, I think, that can't do the job that Herta can, I think. So that unfortunately does put her in this place. As fun as she is, aesthetics and personality wise, yeah, her gameplay just has no reasoning for her to be put all those resources, right? That's another thing too. Like those resources can be used for other units. That's sort of the thing also. All right, so we have now Bronya. Bronya is another very valuable unit. I was able to use her just enough because I got her and I leveled her up to a certain point. Her traces are still level 4 at this point. I need to work on her, but during like early and mid game, I definitely see the value in her, and she definitely has still the same amount of value, if not more, as more units came out, like in Imbibitor, for example, right? Or Blade, for example. More DPS units definitely bounce off of her very well. So she still has her place. She definitely brings her own game to the table and has a reasoning to stay there, right, at that table. She brings units literally up to the next turn in the turn order with her skill, which is very valuable of itself. And not only that, she can or cleanse that unit along the way, I believe, once you get her traces going too. So that of itself is also very valuable. So as a 5-star that can be obtained within standard rotation, she's a little easier to get. So that is also kind of helps her out a little bit. But her basic kit and the gimmick that she brings does bring her up to S because of those things. Just even from those alone, I think is very valuable. And not to mention her burst brings up the crit damage and crit rate, I believe, and that of itself also is all the more reasoning for her to be an S. And of course, I would say probably more higher than Asta for right now. Of course, she's a 5-star unit, but even that, like, I think she does bring much value to the game and your teams because of the advanced forwarding and such other things. She also, I believe, brings buffs to the team, especially once you get her last trace going. I believe one of the 3 major traces allows her to just bring more buffs. She just buffs the whole team on the field, just right then and there. So, and funny, Zele is right up next because they're very close friends, and people like to put them together. But anyways, I don't have Zele, but I definitely know enough from using the support feature, allowing you to use other people's units online, which is really great for games like this, for gacha games or gacha RPGs. And Zele, I definitely know enough that she brings the damage to the table. She is a very good DPS unit still, even if she is the very first one they came out to the character banners. And luckily, she is coming back around later on for now a triple banner rotation, which is actually really cool of Star Rail to do. Though I think it could be overwhelming because there are not enough places to gather resources and ways to get resources to level these characters up and get their traces going and stuff like that. But with that said, I think she definitely brings value because of her multiple turn aspects. She can get more turns depending on whether she kills the enemy or not. Even though she is designated as a single target unit, she turns into a multiple target unit depending on how much damage she can bring. The fact that she scales off of speed, I think, does um, bring her more, even more value, more worth, more reason to have her in your rotations or roster, I should say. Sorry. So very good DPS unit still. I wish to pick her up at some point. Her design aspects are really cool as well. And her exploration game is kind of interesting with the stealth thing I believe she has. I haven't really used it that much, but yeah. But her combat capabilities are very, very good still. No power creeping whatsoever, I think. Serval. I think Serval at first was kind of like early or mid game, but then I think her value went up as the game went on because of how many like robot units appear and stuff like that. From my perspective, anyway, I remember my friends were like really bringing her down for some reason. I saw value in her. I saw potential in her early on, and I think it's just because it was just hard to get resources, and she doesn't really quite fire up early on. Of course, once you really level her up, get her traces going, I think that's when she starts to rev up quite a bit. She does take quite a bit of time to get her going, resources wise. But once she's leveled up, she does bring value to the table. I keep saying table, blah, 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 but that's just how it goes with these RPGs. But anyways, I think as a 4-star unit, she does have at times 5-star performances, especially when you don't have such units such as like Jing Yuan, for example. She kind of is that AoE lightning damage unit. She does bring that aspect to the table, and I think performs pretty well, especially if you know how to build her and such like that. She does have some dot aspects as well, which is why she syncs up with Kafka pretty well. So I would say I can either feel good to put her in low S or very high A. At this point, she has her place. She does have her uses, especially in parts of Forgotten Memories or Memory of Chaos, and other like combat sort of events where there is a lot of robots or units with lightning weaknesses. She does fill in that role pretty well as a lightning attack or AoE attack unit. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave her for high A for right now. I think she just has, while she does fulfill her role pretty well, I think the effects of her traces and stuff like that don't quite put her in like S, I think, for me immediately anyway. But she is an A plus or an S minus. So I'm gonna go ahead and put her in A for right now, just because no one else is an A. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Oh, and funny enough, speaking of, her little brother Japard is actually, funny enough, an S unit. He does bring massive fat shields. He is a shielder through and through. However, I don't quite put him as high as a number of these 5-star units because of the fact that his shields come in during ults or ultimates. I said burst, didn't I, early on? That's a Genshin thing. I'm sorry. His ultimate is what brings him to life. And of course, with ults, that requires energy. So that requires some time to get him going. So unless you have energy regeneration rope, I mean, he definitely, is in need of like a couple of turns to get the shields going, right? But other than that, it's really, really good, I believe, and he does his job pretty well. But yes, it doesn't happen during his skill; it happens during his ult. So yeah, which is why he is a little lower on the S side of things. But nonetheless, what he brings is pretty valuable, I think. Now, granted, I don't have him, but from what I can see, it's pretty damn good for those who do have him. Otherwise, his skill just, I believe he just freezes his targets and such like that. You do just want to basic attack him just to keep those SP points up. I guess it depends on the situation. You know, if you have free SP points to spend, go ahead and use the skill. But basic attack all the way for the most part until you get his ultimate up. That is essentially the Japar in a kind of a nutshell here. Natasha. Natasha was the only healing unit for a long time. So, especially for those who are free to play, such as myself, until Luocha came into play. Once Luocha came into play, she started to fall off a little bit, depending on if you have Bailu or not. Just a little bit though. I would put her in A still, just because she is a healing unit, which is pretty valuable, and it really depends on whether you have her or not. But once you have healing units such as Lynx, she starts to get benched, right? But if you don't bench her, she does bring her own reasonings to the table in her own way. She's physical, which does help with some combat stuff, which some enemies that are very powerful do have physical weaknesses, and that could bring a little more value for her in that sort of certain situation. But her skill, which does not only heal but it also cleanses for that single target, for that single unit, which that of itself is very valuable in many situations. And she was actually really helpful during the simulated universe where Kafka is the boss. I forget which one it was. I think it's like World 4 or something like that, or World 5. But anyway, whichever one with Kafka, she was very helpful, along with one other 4-star unit I had along with me. So she was very helpful in that situation, especially if you don't have another cleansing unit such as Lynx. So she does bring single target cleansing, which that of itself is very helpful for the most part. But probably later on, she is going to fall off more and more, especially with more units coming out with the abundance path. She is falling off quite fast. But again, it really depends on who you have, which is why I'm going to go ahead and put her at the lowest A, highest B, just because if you do have her still, and if you don't have many healing units, she is still kind of carrying her weight just enough for her to be in this place. Pela. Pela is up next. I am going to go ahead and put her at least in high A. Very high A. Not quite up here with Asta. I believe she has very specific things that I think she should have maybe as a defense shredding unit, AoE, which is very good. I think just because of her, her skill not being AoE and stuff like that, unlike Asta and stuff like that, I think that does bring her down a little bit, right? Which is why I would put her still in A+, which is nothing wrong with that. But I don't think she's quite S tier. Maybe for some people she is, and I do understand that because her defense shredding is pretty good, especially once you get the traces all the way up to 9 or 10. She is very good, and she regenerates energy, so you do want to capitalize off of that. So you definitely want to put on some sort of energy regeneration rope. She can cycle through quite fast with her ultimate if you can get the energy going. And, as more light cones come out, maybe that could change her as well. It could help her out quite a bit. But her basic kit, right off the bat, does put her in this place. Not quite up there, but nonetheless, she is pretty helpful because she does debuff the enemy to the point where she can get rid of the what was it, the abundance buff where it revives themselves when they die, against the I think it's called the Marda or something, or the Mara. Um, that stuff, that can be cleansed, so that way they don't come back to life when you attack those. So certain units, I forget their names, but she can debuff and cleanse away their buffs, or those like really powerful buffs that are very annoying to deal with. If you don't have someone like Luocha, right? And she can be substituted in for that situation and does it pretty well. Especially if you just need to get rid of that one buff from the enemy, it does quite help out in that situation. She does have her place indeed, and you can basic attack her all the way, just until the enemy has some sort of buff, and she does help generate SP for the team, and yeah, so she is a very valuable 4-star unit. If you have her with a lot of Eidolons as well, it only helps her, and her traces are pretty good too. So. She does shred ice resistance, so she also is very helpful with units like Yang Qing, and also the upcoming unit Jing Liu, of course, right? So I think she definitely has her place, either an A plus or S minus. So either way, I think she's a very good unit as well for a 4-star. Clara, I would say Clara is definitely up there. The fact that she counters does bring her own sort of distinction to the table in a good way. Physical attack, she does have some sort of AoE attack. She does have a blast attack once you have her ultimate going. And the fact that she does counter is very helpful in certain team comps, right? Once we get to like Luocho, for example. You know, she did help me out quite a bit early on in mid game. Once it's like late game and stuff like that, she starts to fall off a little bit, which is why I would put her somewhere in like the lower S side of things. But if you give her love, she will have returns. She will definitely give her returns, especially when you have the right light cone, of course, and the right setup and the right team to do so. I think she definitely can really shine and help you out quite a bit, especially with her taunting and stuff like that. And she just needs to stay alive, of course. She needs HP. She needs to be healed and all that stuff. But with that said, I think she does bring value and returns with the countering damage. But there are times where, well, the enemy can't attack her, right? And that's where her value starts to fall off a little bit, which is why it's not quite universal, especially when you have warp trouters out there and stuff like that. They just don't quite attack her right. So that's why in that situation her value goes down a little bit. But other than that, for the most part, in other combat situations, she is pretty damn good. You know, she was my first 5-star unit, so I do have that little bit of attachment and a little bit of bias, but I do see where in some situations she starts to fall off. So that's why I don't quite her put like super high up in the S side of things, but she does bring, well, returns and value to the table and stuff like that. Sampo. Sampo is definitely up there as a 4-star unit. Very good for the dot teams, and he does bring AoE wind attacks as well, which is very needed in some situations. I don't know whether to put him in S, but as an attack dot unit man, dot attack unit man. Anyway, he's automatically an S. He does his job very well. He definitely shreds dots. So if you have a dot team, he definitely is very valuable there. So he's a bit more niche and not quite universal, but he does his job very well. So that's why I put him in A at least in A for sure, along with Pela. Okay, Trailblazer, very interesting because Trailblazer does come in with like different elements and roles and stuff like that. So it's kind of difficult to say, but I'm just gonna go ahead and put him in A. I say them in A because, you know, do the same thing. So I gotta put them in the same time. So anyway, basically, you do want to stick with the fire one for the most part. The fire trailblazer, that is the preservation unit, and or they, excuse me, do bring the shields. They bring the damage mitigation a little bit ish. Well, taunt, I should say, and they do bring shield every time they just do some sort of action. It's a it's a decent shielding, and but the fact that it does bring up every time they move is pretty helpful. They have been pretty helpful in a number of situations, so that's why I put them in A. The physical bat wielding destruction class 1 is more on like the B or maybe even C side. I'm not too sure. It's been a while, but I don't see the value in that as much as, you know, bringing in someone like Sushang, for example, right? So that's why I'd rather have them in the preservation role for right now to be the tank, right? And to taunt enemies away from your valuable units, and they can take it a little more. So that to me brings more value when it comes to the preservation side of things. So I'd rather to keep them there for right now, and we'll see what happens when they go into different paths, like Hunt, for example, or Abundance. I think they would be pretty interesting to see, but we'll have to wait. Hook. I think Hook definitely is somewhere in A, at least. I think I'm trying to like put them in the middle or something, but anyway, Hook is pretty good as a DPS unit who also happens to bring dots. So she can sync up with Kafka if you want to, but I think most of her stuff does come from the fact that she is a pretty good 4-star DPS unit, especially if you need fire, right? So not quite the S, but I think she does. She can do the job if you have a gap there. Soon, I think Topaz can probably fill in that role. We'll see. But I think Hook, from what was able to experience, does have the potential to be in a very solid A placing. I'll probably like put her around where Sambo is and stuff like that. But yeah. Anyway, I think she's like right around here. But anyway, not much else to say. She's a 4-star unit. She's fire. She does bring some blast damage. She is destruction, so she does get hit a little more often. But and she doesn't really have survival mechanics, which is why I don't quite put her as high as I would like to. Luocha. Luocha is definitely high up here, I would definitely say. Luocha has been a very good healing unit who basically doesn't have to spend energy to get his AoE heal going, but he does have a bit of a gimmick going on where you do need to use a couple of his skill or burst depending on what your situation is. But his ultimate, does bring more than just like some imaginary damage, which that of itself is actually really helpful when it comes to like someone against what was that big boss with the lady, big purple lady, Antilia, I think her name is. Her stuff is imaginary weak, so that's why Luocho is really helpful there in that situation. But he does bring the cleanse, or the debuff to take away the Mara or whatever you call it away from the enemy. So that way, especially from those units, right? Those certain units that come back to life get stripped of that, and they don't come back to life when you kill them. And not to mention, whenever that guy with the spear and the shield comes in and tries to drain your life, to bring back his or theirs, whatever, them's, excuse me, that also gets taken away as well. So very, very helpful unit in those situations as well. So Luocha does bring his own value for sure. If you're able to pull him, you are pretty much set for the 2 healing teams and stuff like that, along with Natasha. If you have Bailu, I think it's a little better, but just by a smidge. But Luocha also does the cleansing like Natasha, so kind of takes her place in that regard. Already power creeps her a little bit, right, in that regard. So Luocha definitely does fulfill those roles already. Not only that, his main gimmick is really helpful, which is the AoE healing as you attack, which is why units such as Clara are really helpful because, as she gets attacked, gets targeted, the counterattack counts as an attack, which heals the entire party. So she gets hit, she gets her health back, and everyone else gets their health back as well. So it's very synchronizing is very strong with these two already, with Clara and Luocha. So that's why you do want to, in a way, bring these two together to help sustain the health of the other two. If you want to try that out. Jing Yuan. The Jing Yuan was the very first 5-star unit that I really wanted, so that's why I saved up for him over Zele. I think Jing Yuan still brings value to the table. I don't think he's fallen off as hard as an AoE attacker. Maybe Kafka did take his place a little bit for some people, but I still like having him. He does very good amount of damage, and especially if you have the right crit and damage ratios, he definitely slaps in that department. If you have him wear speed boots instead of attack boots, where he does more damage with attack boots. I think overall though, the fact that he has more speed, right? Speed does give him more actions, and it definitely will bring out his lightning god more. So that's why overall, you definitely want to put him with speed boots more than anything. But anyway, that's where his reliance comes in, right? He's very reliant on his follow-up, which is why, that could hold him back a little bit, but that's why I don't quite, put him high up there as like Zele, for example. Whenever the Lightning God comes in, very damaging, very helpful, great AoE attack for lightning weak enemies and such like that. But he does suck up SP because you need to constantly use skill and stuff like that to get his Lightning God going. So quite the selfish unit in that regard. And sometimes, depending on how you build him, doesn't quite bring back the value. The returns don't come back as strong as someone like Kafka, for example. Or even Serval in some situations. But his damage output is pretty high overall as a 5-star unit. That's why he's just still has his place, in my opinion, as an S. So I really like him. He's really cool. His ultimate is, just very satisfying. It does help with his Lightning God requirements, right? Because you need at least 5 just to bring out the god. And then 10 is like the maximum, and that's where you want to, yes, of course, obviously, aim for that. But somewhere with 8 or if you're close to 9 somehow, you still are gaining pretty good value out of that. So, very, very good AoE lightning 5-star attacker. But I can kind of see a future where he does start to fall off, but we'll see about how this game fares out. Yang Qing, another follow-up attacker, single target, and stuff like that. So I will put him somewhere in the same place as Jing Yuan. But, Yang Qing is an ice single attacker with the follow-up attack. So he does bring his own damage, right? He does pump out the damage as a single target. And I think he's pretty straightforward. And, his kit allows him to get more crit, all that stuff. So nothing much to say off for Yang Qing. It's just a matter of what kind of support units you have for him. That's really all there is to it, right? So because of his crit stat buffing sort of like passes and stuff like that from his alt or whatever light cones you put on him, all that fun stuff, He won't quite fall off that fast, but units like Jing Liu could be the start of him falling off, depending on how she performs later down the line. But he's a pretty straightforward unit. He's pretty good if you do manage to pull him, and he will do the job as a single attacker. I think he can do quite a bit of damage. Bailu, I will also put her in somewhere in the S, but not quite up there. Her value is falling off a little bit, but she still has a place. She can revive dead units, right? Whenever they do die. So that of itself is probably keeping her in the S for right now, as a 5-star healer. Hard to say of where she's going to lie right in the future. She can have the potential to get power crept even as a 5-star healer, but for right now, I think she's still in a good place. She does have her own reasonings, but the fact that she can't cleanse from her skill is kind of what puts her in the lower side of the S tiers, right? As a 5-star healer, or just a healer in general, really, because Natasha does something she can't, right? Bailu can't in that way. So that's why I did put Natasha still in A, while Bailu is still in S, but she does have a gap there, which is kind of interesting, right? So not bad, of course, as a 5-star healer, but at one point I did really want her, but I got Luocho, so it's like Luocho can cleanse and provides very good sustain with his healing, but yeah, Bailu doesn't quite, completely dominates as a S-tiered healer, but S-tier no less, and she still can do the job, of course, but you're going to be missing out on that cleansing in those situations. And speaking of S-tiered units, I guess, Ting Yung is definitely a strong contender as probably the best 4-star unit, if not a very, she's kind of like a 5-star and a 4-star package, right? I would actually put her like maybe around here, as a 4-star. Very good unit. She does her job very well. She buffs, she generates energy, she brings up speed for some people, I guess, depending on what kind of light cone you have on her, or I think some of her traces do help her out with that. But either way, wherever I'm getting mixed up, her basic kit is very valuable. She helps other units hit really hard. That's her pretty much her main role, and she does that role very well. Unfortunately, she is very squishy, and you definitely want to be very careful with her. Even though she's a harmony unit, for some reason the enemy loves hitting her. Maybe there's a lore reason, maybe there's something else, maybe there's a bug, maybe there's an intentional bug, I guess you could say, because she's so good, right, that the enemy wants to hit her to kill her and stuff like that. I don't know. She is still, I think she's better than someone like Yukong, because she does not suck up SP. She helps sustain SP counts, and only really needs to use SP like once per every 3 turns or something like that, and brings a lot of value to the table for sure with those alone. And of course, the more islands you get, the crazier she gets. Of course, she gets crazier as the islands go on, right? I forget where she is at for my Ting Yung in terms of Eidolons, but yeah, either way, she is very, very good. Energy, buffs, I think some speed, but either way, yes, very good. Damage boosting, all that stuff. She's almost kind of like the Bennett without the healing, That's pretty much where she is, man. She's very good. Very, very good. Qing Shui, or QQ, as a number of people like to call her. I would say probably put her in mid A somewhere, depending on where your situation is. She actually is really good in the swarm invasion for right now. So that's why I would put her in B otherwise, but I actually put her in A because of that. Yes, that is the one mode, right? Just one mode, and probably should not maybe be very, very valuable, but um there is stuff to do. You do want to get stuff from there. Maybe that's why, I like to put her in A, right? She does suck up a lot of SP. She kind of is the 4-star imbiber, funny enough, that does quantum damage. If you think about it. And she does have the gambling gimmick, so that's why she doesn't quite go up there in the S. The risk and reward kind of thing doesn't quite pay off as much. But depending on the situation, she is very dangerous, right? That's why her potential is like kind of like all over the place, I think. She just like otherwise in other modes, a pretty basic quantum attacker who is hungry for a gimmick that requires you to get her pieces lined up right, and then in the process you have to suck up all that SP. So all that SP is gonna go to her if you want to really main her, right? And the reward can be kind of underwhelming at times, right? Depending on the gambling aspect of things. So that's why I don't quite put her in S. But depending on your situation, she does. Sorry about that. That was my headphones clicking and stuff like that. But she does rise once she has certain gimmicks going on with her, like the stuff in simulated universe or the swarm invasion, of course, within the simulated universe. What kind of cards you get from there would definitely really potentially help her out, right? So that's why the fact that she needs stuff outside of things does put her lower, but the output is pretty damn good. So that's why I put an A. So Sushang, I think Sushang is really good. From what I can see, I wish to really build her just to see, but from what I was able to see, she's kind of like a 4-star Zaylee almost with the physical damage. She does have multiple turn potential, which is why in some circumstances or some cases she kind of is a 5-star in a 4-star package. Kind of the same case with Ting Young, but 4-star DPS, so not quite up there, but her effects and stuff like that are pretty damn good, especially when you get more. Guess what? Eidolons, right? She does quite need more, which is why she does get a lower placement. But once you get up there, once you do get those resources, right, more Eidolons, traces and all that stuff, she is quite dangerous for a 4-star unit. So very surprising. I kind of wish I do build her so that way, like some situations, she can whoop some physical weak enemies' asses. Where Clara doesn't, right? In some situations, very pretty situational, I guess. But I think she deserves a high A at least in my book. Yukong. Yukong is like, I wish to put her up here, but not quite, because like she was kind of like supposed to be premiered as like a S tier 4-star unit in my eyes, because she's kind of like Ting Young in a way, but she requires more turn. Her effects last for only a couple turns, and you really need to speed tune her to like certain DPS units, right? So it's hard for her to shine because it's based off of turns rather than who's targeted, right? For example, you activate her skill. Those two units, whoever goes, sucks up those turns, right? And that sucks because a lot of those times, right? Someone like Imbiber. Imbiber has attack boots, which means he's not that fast because, well, you don't want him to take more turns because he kind of requires to suck up SP, right? You want the big skill attack whenever he does go. That's why she does like whenever things do line up, like it works, right? But you require so much like sort of nuances and stuff like that, and the planets to align. Um, I would put her, sorry, I would put her more into the just A, right? But whenever it does work, it's really good, right? And she does have her own like toughness break boosting aspects with imaginary. So she kind of is like this weird hybrid of attack and a support unit in a way. You can build her to be more of an attack unit, but you kind of want her for her support effects. And she does, yes, quite suck up the SP as well because of how fast her effects disappear. Her support disappears, right? So unfortunately, not quite the best unit, but very situational. Like depending on your speed and stuff like that with her, she can work, but there's so much like tuning required. It's a bit of a headache, so that's why I would put her in A, but definitely not quite up there with like Ting Young. Ting Young, I think, is still the better of the two Fox girls when it comes to like supporting and stuff like that. March. March is kind of been up there still. Even with all the time passing, right? And she's kind of like the Amber, right? In terms of a story role, she's like the first bow girl that you like read into. She's kind of like almost like the poster girl. She is the poster girl because she's on the icon, right? For the app. And one would think as someone who does play Genshin and stuff like that, right, would fall off pretty fast, right? But no, she's still floating, man. She does have her own value still. She does bring returns as a defensive reservation unit who can tank, who can counter, provide a single shield, but very chunky shield at that. So she kind of stands alongside with Trailblazer, the fire Trailblazer, if not more, because of what she can potentially do, especially when you get more Eidolons, right? Like I think when she gets E6, she can heal a little bit, so she does bring some sort of like sustain, which is again really really valuable. She does have a an AoE freeze potentially, depending on depending on the effect hit rate. And yeah, so I think she still has her place. I think. I think yeah, definitely she will fall off eventually, but she is falling off a lot slower than I expected. So pretty helpful still. She does have some sort of taunt for whoever has a shield, right? That's why her and Clara can sync up quite well, especially in the early game, early side of things. These two were very helpful for me in those situations, in those times of Star Rail. But nonetheless, she still is an A for me. Dan Heng, I think this is the first B unit for my taste, because he requires a little some nuances, right? Like they have to be slow to really bring out the damage potential for him. He's very needy, right? He kind of needs debuffs to activate his effects and stuff like that, and it's very specific, right? It's like slow or whatever. So it's hard to get him set up unless you have units like Well, for example, or anyone else who does slow, right? Like Silver Wolf, for example, right? So and because it's like a very specific thing, it does bring him down a little bit, and then at that point, you already have other single damaging units that aren't as needy. So that's why I kind of put him in B in that regard. He definitely does have potential to be somewhere in A, but to me, in my situation, I've benched him. I've not used him for a long time. And especially once you get someone like Blade, he kind of fulfills that role quite well. So, but if you don't have Blade and you need some sort of wind damage, he does help out, but he's pretty needy. require some planets to align and stuff like that. But once that happens, yeah, he can bring the damage. I just personally don't really like how he flows. So maybe that's why that lack of like synchronization with some players like me. I'm gonna put him in high B at least. You know, he does have damage, but he's a little too needy for someone like me anyway. So that's why I'm putting him in B for right now. Yeah, Himiko. I'm very unfortunate as a 5-star unit. I'm gonna go ahead and put her in like somewhat high A because yeah, she's a 5-star, but the output overall is a little bit on the weak side as a 5-star unit. I mean, she does farm really well with for materials and stuff like that. You know, for those domains and whatever, or not domains, but you know what I mean, the calyxes, right? She does those areas pretty well, but you know, so does like some other 4-star units. They can kill them just fine. You know what I mean? So that's why. But depending on, I guess, how many Eidolons you need or have for her, she does shine a little more. But, you know, she's in standard rotation. You can get her. If you have her, she could help out, but she doesn't quite, like, bring out the damage from what I can see, unfortunately. And her conditions are a little more needy as well. Like, you have to break toughness a lot to do her follow-up attack. You know, it just seems like these units with follow-up attacks are pretty needy, right? You know, some less than others, of course. Someone like Himiko, like for stuff, like so you have to break the enemy 3 times just to get her full, condition going, right? Her follow-up attack to get going with the pizza cutter and everything. I mean, she's a good unit for early on stuff, but that's not really saying much for 5-star unit, I think. And she starts to fall off, right, once it's in the later game. But if you only have, if she is like one of the only fire damaging units you got, or just damaging units in general, she could potentially get the job done. But her output, again, is just not good enough for the needs that she has. It's not completely bad, that's the thing, right? But in comparison to other 5-stars in available, or even some 4-stars in that aspect, yeah, that's where she kind of falls off a bit, right? Noticeably, at least. Welt. Welt is the better of the two when it comes to the Express, right? I think it's called the Star Rail Express, but anyway, the Star Rail Express, the 2 people, right, always hangs out in the train, or Welt was in the expedition with us last, but he definitely is up there. He definitely is up there, along with like a number of the support type units. He is Nihility, so he does like bring debuffs and stuff like that. He slows down the enemy and brings the imaginary damage. So he's kind of like one of the only imaginary damaging units early on. So he was valuable there. But once more and more people came out, kind of, I wouldn't say he fell off, but there was definitely slightly less reasons. But he's really good. You can control the battlefield with the slow. If you have him, you can definitely bring up Don Hung quite a bit. But either way, he fulfills that role very well. He can be godlike. He can be helpful. Not much to really say. And I don't really know where he goes, right? As more and more, you know, characters come out. Whether he gives power crept or not. We'll see if other characters fulfill his sort of role better later on. But we'll see. Kafka, man, she was very, very very hyped up, very much looked forward to, up to the point where she came out. A lot of people were talking about her. She had a lot of fan art, a lot of anticipation, and I think it paid off. I mean, she definitely is up there. If you're willing to build dot units, you have to kind of tunnel yourself, right? Depending on what you want to do, right? So take the dot route or the typical DPS route. But Kafka does her job very well. So it really is up to you, right? Like if you want a dot unit team, then she does that very well. But you can't just put her in like any teams. You have to build a team around the dots, right? At least have one other dot unit on the team, and yeah, you're pretty good. But if you can build a really effective dot team, she really shines. And so she does need some teammates to get her going. So that's why I don't quite would say she's like better than these two, for example, right? She does have a follow-up attack, but she's a nihility unit for the most part. And for the most part, on top of that, she is a dot unit, 5-star dot unit. In some situations, she can replace Jin Yuan for some people. I guess it depends on what kind of like light cones you have and traces going and how many islands you have for her. But she's E0 for me. I do have her, luckily. And a number of situations, she has been very helpful. And I wish to build more dot units just for her to shine more. So I think in that regard, yes, she needs teammates to shine, like definitely. So that's why not quite the highest of S tiers, but her role she fulfills very good. Very good dot unit, right? She is a dot queen for right now. On top of her sort of visual appeal and her voice and all that stuff, character wise, right, and the story and all that stuff, yes, she is very S tier, right? Design aspects, yes, very S tier. Her technique is pretty good too, both effect and visual wise. I think some players may know what I'm talking about. But anyway, speaking of Kafka, who is in the Stellaron Hunters, Silverwolf. I think Silverwolf is very, very S tier, very high up there. The fact that she can add weaknesses to the enemy is so viable. She definitely is the best sort of like support type unit. Still, like very much so, and I think she will be for a very long time, because unless there's another Silverwolf or another Bronya unit, those who kind of get the inside Honkai Star Rail sort of, or no, Honkai general stuff, right? Silverwolf is going to be up there for about a long time, I think. I think she'll have a lot of value, and the diminishing returns will be very less apparent, right? That alone is very, very good. And her ultimate is kind of just like the cherry on top. She just brings more defense shred for a single target, quantum damage, you know what I mean? So it seems like the mono quantum teams are eating good because of that. Especially if you have Zele, Silverwolf, Lynx, and I think one other unit. I'm forgetting. Forgive me, but yeah, she's very. Oh yeah, and Fushuan, like that is the mono quantum team, and you know QQ can come in too, but very, very powerful, potentially probably like better than like mono Geo, of course, like in Genshin, for example. By the way, I would say S plus. She's like very. I would probably put her in God tier if that was available, but the fact that the weakness adding thing on top of attack reduction or defense reduction or speed reduction, he brings so much to the table. It's crazy, right? Silverwolf does have a lot of value, you know, and the fact that you don't really need crazy light cones to get her going. Her basic kit has been really helpful. That weakness addition is that alone is why I put her up very high up in the S tiers. All right. Well, unfortunately, Arlen is kind of like down here. It's like I really wanted to make him work. Can he work? Sure, but a lot of people compare him to Blade, or Blade compared to Arlen. But Arlen's like Hu Tao, but it's less doable because you can't dodge, right? and he's gonna get hit at some point, if not a lot, as a destruction unit. He needs to be at 50% health. He's quite squishy, and by the time you fulfill those conditions, like you really aren't able to do much. Um, there are times where you do want to heal everyone, but you're gonna heal him too. So it's like, I don't know about that. Um, it's just hard to sustain his 50% health, without really risking him dying. And the reward is just like very yeah, not great. As much as there is risk, right? The risk and reward is just very off. I don't really like him. He's been benched for along with Herta and Dong Hung. But at least Dong Hung is like he's very easy to manage. So I wouldn't say he's broken. So he's like he can fulfill some things if you're willing to work with him. There's so much to work with, right? That you gotta like. There's so many hurdles, right? In comparison to like all the other units. It's like why use him when you have Serval? You know, it's just I don't know, man. I try to make him work at some point, but he's really cool too, personality wise and stuff like that. But it's just hard to justify his placement in the team. Why have him at this point, especially when you have Jing Yuan, Serval, you know what I mean, and more lightning units that can come out, later on. He just gets power crept so much. Definitely kind of sad, but yeah, again, he works. That's why I put him C. So kind of like with Herta. Speaking of units that lose health and stuff like that, Blade. Blade is also pretty high up there, I would say. Probably around here. Like he's a very good DPS unit with wind damage, man. He's so fun to use. I like him. The health losing aspects is quite something, right? And there are just things that are made for him, you know. And these health losing the health losing units are going to be more of a thing, especially with Jing Liu later on. But right now, I think it's working. Right? I mean, he brings the damage. The payoff is way better. He sustains himself. It just makes more sense. His kit just makes more sense. If Arlen scaled off of a max HP, then I think he would start to shine better. But I can't really say he's a 4-star Blade, but it's more like a 4-star Hu Tao. But there's a difference, right, with those two games. Anyways, Blade is what Arlen wishes to be, almost, I feel. And it's not like you need to keep him at 50%. It's just depends on the amount of health he loses. The more health he loses, the stronger he gets. And he's gonna get hit a lot, so it takes up his other talent, right, or his passive, which allows him to do the follow-up attack, which that of itself does a lot of damage, right? And especially if you have his light cone, man, he's gonna do a lot of damage, right? Unfortunately, I don't have the light cone for him. I'm using Secret Vow, ironically, because it has Arlen on it, right? For Blade, and that's kind of a helpful substitution for him. I've been really liking Blade, and it's definitely paying off in that aspect. I just need to get a actual good a relic for his crit damage, right? And that's really essentially the only thing I need for him. And he's gonna shine even more. He's only gonna shine more. He's been helping me out. He works well with Luocha, in that sense. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to kill him. Ironically, Blade hardly dies. Not only has a lot of health, but he just sustains himself too, and he brings out the damage, so he just kills the enemy too. So, Blade is very, very good, I would say. Luca. Luca, I am not sure. I mean, I heard he's good. He fulfills his role pretty well. I have him, but I have not built him, so it's hard to say like where I can place him. But from what it sounds like, um, he's a dot unit along with Kafka, so he helps out Kafka, right? They help each other out, I guess. So he's very pretty niche in that sense, but his niche is fulfilled pretty well, and he's fulfilling his job pretty well, I guess. So I'll put him in low A for right now. I can't really say much about him from what I gathered. He seems to be an A ish. Oh man. Imbibitor though. I do have things to say about Imbibitor. Imbibitor brings massive damage. He definitely brings a massive amount of damage. I was glad I was able to get his light cone. In fact, I got two of his light cone. I slapped it together. And he brings a lot of damage. But he is very high investment, high resource. He's just high everything. He's a nuke, but he requires a lot. Not only in resources, of course, but also with resources on the battlefield. That is SP. He requires 3 SP to bring out his max potential. Yes, you do. Do you have to bring? Do you have to do 3 points? No. But you want to, which is why you want teams that don't suck up his SP, right? That's why units like Yukong don't work for him overall. You know, team synchronization is weak unless you're going to build around these two for sure. Yeah, I guess could work. Unless you have ways to sustain SP, like swarm invasion effects and other such things. But yeah, he does require tuning in that area, but the payoff is very good, I think. So it's one of those like high investments, very high payouts if you're willing to do so. He does a lot of damage. Depending on what kind of relics you run with him, you can get more out of him as well. I have the imaginary 4-piece set, which yes requires a condition to fulfill, which is to be debuffed with imaginary effects, right? So they gotta be broken with imaginary damage, and then bring out the full potential. But he just erases people, right? When you have the SP. That's why he works very well with someone like Tin Yung. That's why Tin Yung is that much better than units like Yukong. Tin Yung requires very minimal amount of SP to do her thing and help out someone like Imbibitor, for example. So, but otherwise, yeah, he's pretty straightforward with the relic build, like crit damage or crit body, attack rope, elemental orb, which is imaginary, that type of stuff. He's one of the only units that have attack boots on, because you really don't want him to suck up all that SP that fast. Like, what's the point, right? So you might as well make that one time of him attacking all the more damaging. So that's why I put on attack boots. It's more return overall, and it's easy to get, easy to build. Those speed boots can go on to someone else that actually needs it, So that's why he actually is a little easier to build in that one little aspect. But yeah, he's very high investment overall. Yeah, but he's a nuke. He'll blow up everyone when you are willing to turn that key. What it will cost? Yeah. All right. One of the newest units, Fushuan. Haven't quite unlocked all her potential just yet, which is why I don't quite know 100% of where she is in the S tiers, but she is S tier no less. Probably up there with like Ting Yung, right? Probably around here. I would say around here. But anyway, doesn't really matter. She's a S tier no matter what. She is a very good damage mitigation unit. It does quite, take a bit of management, right, to make sure she doesn't die. But um, make sure you just have energy because it keeps up her pips. And when she has pips and goes down to a certain health percentage, she automatically massive heals herself and will continue the damage mitigation for all the other units. She kind of is what Data should have been in a way, kind of. But either way, she is very helpful. She's been very helpful so far. Although still can't handle certain hard content. Um, I think maybe the light cone could be helpful, right? Her 5-star light cone could be helpful, but um, it's tough. It's pretty tough still. In certain combat situations, but she definitely helps out most other combat situations a lot better. Perhaps in swarm invasion, yes, but some of my Memory of Chaos, I'm still having trouble. That's probably because my other units need some building for some of them. But she brings her kit quite effectively. She is quite effective of what she is built to be. That's why I put her in S. All right, the other new unit, right, that came out. I would actually put her somewhere high A, right? High A or low S. So, I think she kind of deserves a low S just because she brings a team wide cleanse, very helpful. She can heal. I forget if her skill cleanses or not. In that aspect, right? I mean, the does she power creep Natasha quite a bit? Yeah, I think it does. She does. She can heal for multiple turns, right? With the healing over time thing. So basically, kind of like dot healing, kind of, but not really. Um, I guess you could say hot, right? Instead of dot. But anyway, I think she's somewhere either in low S, high A for sure. Scales off of HP nicely. Her basic attack actually scales off of HP. Natasha's doesn't, so that's why it's like a cherry on top of how Ling's power creeps Natasha more ways than one, right? So pretty funny in that aspect. I guess there's the new units that have come out. Have yet to come out. Excuse me. Let's start with yeah. Um, uh, so Gwenifin or yeah, Gwenifin, yeah. Um, she is going to be the fire nihility unit. Very interesting. I think she'll automatically be an A. Like probably this is gonna like a prediction thing. I think she'll just lie somewhere in A. She'll do her job as a fire dot unit. She'll be an actual fire dot unit, unlike like Hawke for example. But I think she'll probably be around the same with Luca, wherever he is. She'll probably be around that. Um, she'll be like the fire dot for Kafka, right, to activate. I think there's not much to say. Her animations do look cool, especially with her exploding spear. Kind of reminds me of like Don Krieg with his mighty battle spear, which is pretty funny. From One Piece. Yeah, that's all I can really say for when it comes to predictions. Jing Liu, he's the upcoming ice destruction DPS unit. I think she'll definitely be up there with Blade. For sure. At least around with Blade. Yes, she does suck up health from her other allies, which is quite different. But I think the payoff will be really, really good. Yeah, you were playing around with death, literally, but I think the payoff will be pretty good. Maybe is she gonna be better than Blade? I don't know, but I feel like she's going to be very good. Is she going to replace Yangqing as that ice DPS unit? Can't say. I don't know. But I feel like she's going to have similar results as someone like Blade, if not better, depending on what kind of light cone is going to do for her, like what the 5-star cone is going to do for her, and all that stuff. You know, what other support units come out and stuff like that. What other circumstances bring for her, I guess. Shui Yi, it's kind of hard to say. I have no idea what she's going to do. So, I don't know what her role is going to be. I haven't looked at the leaks, or I haven't like checked out what the word on the street is for her. So I have no idea what she is going to be. So, I'm just gonna put her for C for right now, only because I don't know what she's doing. Topaz, however, I feel like she's going to be a fun follow-up unit. So I'll probably put around here with the follow-up units, right? Along with the Yangqing and Jing Yuan. She's gonna be a pretty fun fire hunt follow-up unit. But I feel like she's going to be up here-ish because of her like exploration game, because of the fact that her companion can help find treasure and stuff like that. It's going to be really helpful. So people are going to pull for her. And those reasons are just like the cherry on top, for sure. Going to be pretty helpful. So I guess in that regard, even if her gameplay kit kind of sucks, she'll probably like be around here, you know? But I'm pretty sure her damage will be pretty good, so that's why I'll put her up here with the Fallout boys. That would be, yeah, that's where I'm at with that. So this is my what my tier list is looking like for Star Rail. I think pretty consistent that the fact that most units are usable, right? Situational with Don Hung, depending on where you are. These two are benched. I have no idea what Shui is going to do. These two are benched for sure. But everyone else is very usable, right? With, of course, the exception of, like, Wen Naifen and Jing Liu. Although Jing Liu and Topaz are going to be safer to say that they should perform pretty well for 5 stars. But anyways, that's all I got. That's really all I have. If you have any comments about my tier list, do you agree with it? What units do you think are S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, or even D? I mean, the thing is, no one is really in D. I think they all work. It's just a case of like, why use them when there's these other units? You know what I mean? So, no idea. Although, oh yeah, let me just do this one quick fix. I really like her design, so I'm gonna just put her around here. So, I'll put them between. I like her design, so that alone puts her in low A for right now, until I find out what her gameplay kit is like and how she performs. But anyways, now if you have any comments, leave me down below. Hit the like, subscribe. Really appreciate it, guys. So this has my tier list for Honkai Star Rail characters, where they place at in my rank, as of 1.3, and hopefully beyond. So, with that, thank you very much, and hope to see you all in the next video. Sean out.